Everyone hear me? Yeah. I do. Richard Matthew Christian Shane, 3079 Shore Drive, Merrick, New York. Office address 3242 Railroad Avenue, Wantagh, New York, 11793. Good evening and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Matt Shane. I am the largest commercial real estate broker east of Manhattan for the past 7 years now, according to MLS. I deal with hundreds of millions of dollars worth of property annually. And again, I sell properties from Montauk all the way into Manhattan. My career is built around understanding how neighborhoods evolve, how land use decisions shape communities, and how quickly small changes can snowball into major impacts. On Long Island, if you give an inch, very often it becomes a mile. I lived on Long Island my whole life, and my childhood doctor's office was located right next door to 2856 Jerusalem Avenue. So tonight, I'm not speaking only as a professional with deep experience, but as someone with personal roots in this exact area. Here's the core issue. This is a landmarked, historically protected property that protection exists for a reason. Anyone who purchases a landmark property knows full well that those protections, restrictions, and review processes that come along with it. Those rules do not disappear simply because ownership changes hands, Mohammed. And if the current owners are unhappy with the obligations that come with owning a landmarked site, then the solution is the same one that many of my clients have chosen over the years. Sell the property and buy one that suits your plans. What is absolutely not an option is rewriting landmark protections after the fact. We have already seen multiple unapproved actions taken on this site. A trailer placed there without authorization. A fence was built illegally without any approval from this board. And now we're being asked to normalize those violations after the work was already done. This is not how zoning works. This is not how historic preservation works. And it is not how responsible community planning works anywhere on Long Island. I want to raise a larger question that everyone in this room is asking themselves. Why shut the world out on a landmark property that was always meant to be visually open to the community? Landmark sites are supposed to welcome the neighborhood in. They are supposed to remain accessible, visible, and connected to the people who live around them. That is the entire purpose of preserving them. Building high, solid, opaque walls is what you do when you want to hide something. It is what you do when you want to close yourselves off. That is what correctional facilities do, not community-centered institutions. A property with this kind of history should be inviting, not barricaded. It should be part of the neighborhood, not sealed away from it. If the intention is to serve the community, then the property should reflect openness, not isolation. If you approve this fence, you are setting a precedent that landmark protections and town codes are optional. And once that precedent is set, it will never be undone. There are serious faults and safety concerns. This site already contributing to dangerous traffic conditions. A solid opaque fence blocks visibility for both drivers and pedestrians along the busiest corridors in this area. Jerusalem Avenue is already congested, and this board knows full well many accidents happen when sight lines are reduced. Safety alone is enough to deny this fence. Beyond safety and compliance, the larger community impact must be considered. First is transparency. Enclosing a historic parcel, opaque walls violates the purpose, spirit, and letter of a landmark protection. The public has a right to maintain visual connection to a historic site. Second is long-term land use. There is publicly posted plans online indicating significant future expansion. A fence is not an isolated request. It is the foundational step in a larger redevelopment strategy. Once that perimeter wall goes up, a pathway is created for more intensive changes that could permanently alter the character of the historic parcel. We also have an unapproved trailer on site allegedly housing a large HVAC system gifted for future expansion. If this is step one, the logical question is, where do the unapproved steps stop? Precedent matters. If you allow retroactive approval for one violation, it opens the door to many more. I had a long time to write because Mohammed spoke for 5.5 hours. I also want to address something that occurred earlier today. I was genuinely offended by the way today's presentation was handled. We witnessed a 5.5-hour filibuster-style monologue. Not very welcoming. That approach does not foster trust. It frustrates the people who live here, raises more questions than answers. It is not how cooperative applicants behave when they genuinely want partnership with the community, Mohammed. Let me be very clear. The frustration you are hearing from residents is real. The situation is upsetting a large portion of the community. People do not feel heard. They do not feel respected. They feel that the rules are being ignored and concerns are being dismissed. That is the true source of the anger here, not the identity of the applicant, but their actions and disregard for the process. And I want to repeat this so it is absolutely clear. This is not about religion. This is not about who owns the property. This is about behavior, compliance, and whether the laws that protect this community are being respected. North Bellmore and North Wantagh residents are not the aggressors here. They're simply asking for the same standard that every homeowner, every business, and every place of worship must follow. No applicant ever should be allowed to ignore the rules and present themselves as a victim when the community expects compliance, Mohammed. From a development standpoint, I want to warn the board about the precedent you're about to set. I am a developer. I know hundreds of developers. If this board weakens the landmark protections tonight by approving this retroactive fence on a protected property, developers across Long Island will use this case to challenge restrictions on thousands of protected and landmarked parcels, myself included. I'll make money, I don't care. I care, but... From a business standpoint, developers would love that precedent, but from a community standpoint, that would be devastating. This fence was built illegally. It violates landmark protections. It increases traffic danger. It reduces public transparency on a historic site. It lays the groundwork for a major expansion that were never part of the original landmarked property's intended use. I strongly urge the board to deny this application and require full compliance with all landmark zoning and safety regulations already in the books. Protect the process, protect the community, and protect the property. And let me say something about traffic because it matters. I spent a huge portion of my career in Brooklyn and Queens. I see what happens when land use decisions are made without thinking about long-term congestion. I see what happens when visually blocked, when visibility is blocked, when density creeps in, when one small change after another finally tips the scale, the gridlock, the accidents, the backups, the constant frustration that people live with every single day in those boroughs did not happen overnight. It happened because a board looked at an individual decision in isolation instead of seeing the bigger picture. Trust me when I say this, we do not want Long Island to become that. We do not want Jerusalem Avenue turning into another jam corridor where safety is compromised and congestion is the norm. A solid fence.
Hold on. So as traffic flow relates to the safety issue of the fence, that's fine, but we're not here about traffic and congestion. Okay, just the safety and the fence. That's right. That's right. But just not congestion and traffic.
We do not want Jerusalem Avenue turning into another jam corridor where safety is compromised and congestion is the norm. A solid fence on a corner like this is exactly how that kind of problem begins. Traffic is already strained here. Adding blocked sight lines will make it significantly worse. We cannot afford to repeat the mistakes of Brooklyn and Queens on a road that is already overburdened. And before I close, I want to make one final request that speaks directly to the fairness and accountability. Every homeowner, every business in this town knows what happens when you build something without permits. You get fined daily until you correct the violation. That is the law. That is the standard. That is the system that keeps order in this town. There is no reason this property should be treated any differently. So I am asking the board to begin immediately daily fines for every day that the illegal fence remains standing and for every day the unapproved trailer remains on this site.
Sir, when there's a zoning board case pending, all enforcement actions are stayed under the state law. So he has a case pending. We wouldn't be able to cite him on a daily basis while this case is pending. And that's a matter of state law, not the town of Hempstead.
So I'm asking the board to immediately begin daily fines, even though I can ask.
Can ask.
That the illegal fence remains standing. No exceptions, no delays, no special treatment. Violations are clear. The process has been ignored. The community deserves enforcement. This board has the power and the responsibility to uphold its own code, just as you would with other property owners in the town of Hempstead. Tonight is not simply about a fence. It's not simply about one property. It's about whether the laws in this town still mean something. It's about whether landmark protection still means something. It's about whether the people who live here and pay taxes, raise families, and follow the rules still matter. If this one illegal fence is allowed to stand on a protected landmark, then you are not making a small decision. You are making a generational decision. You are opening the door for every developer, myself included, every investor, every landowner, and every organization across Long Island to point to this moment and say the rules no longer apply. I know this industry. I live it every day. The precedent you set tonight will not end here. It will echo throughout thousands of properties. It will change the way historic sites are protected. It will change how zoning is enforced. It will change the entire balance of power between the community and those who want to reshape it for their own purposes. So I'm asking the board as forcefully and respectfully as I can to recognize the weight of this moment. The community is watching. The legal community is watching. The development community is watching. Every person who cares about the integrity of this town is watching. Do not reward violations. Do not weaken protections. Do not create precedent that will haunt you for decades. Stand with the residents in this room. Stand with the residents of this community. Stand with the law. Stand with the principle that no one is above the rules. Deny this fence. Protect the landmark. Protect the neighborhood. Protect the future of this town. Thank you.
Stephanie.